Welcome to the Startup Grind.
So welcome Adelaide and Ilya from Oxygen Ventures to the Startup Grind. So can everyone hear us all right?
Yep.
Cool. So welcome to Adelaide.
Thank you.
You enjoyed it? You didn't bring the weather with you?
Oh, I
It's not raining.
outside today.
That was right.
Yeah.
Usually people come from home and bring the weather. I see it.
You don't sound like you have a chip on your shoulder.
That's why I'm down here. So you guys have been to Startup Grind. No.
Yep.
You're big friends with Chris.
Great.
So we sort of did this before that.
Yeah.
So we'll start off with Adelaide. What did your parents do?
Oh my gosh.
Don't forget that he does this.
No, I never paid attention to this part. My mum had a series of businesses, and my dad did wholesale retail.
Okay. What about you?
Dad was a mechanical engineer, returner, yeah, and trains actually. So he got trains, a train engineer. And my mum ended up her career as an accountant, but she ran her own business early on. Sold not big, but she was great at that. So
So the next question we'd like to try. What we're trying to do is build context of how you guys started and where you are today and what the gaps and all that.
Yeah.
I try and make it about me, but no one ever asks me questions. So
What is your question?
Start going into what I do too much. When you were, can you think of what your first experience in entrepreneurship was? When you were a kid selling toys, something like that?
This is writing the memory drop.
mine was late. Mine was a late experience, I must say. I was probably smothered a bit as a kid, growing up in a Russian family. Immigrants only. I think the way that they looked upon things was, we're going to do all the hard work, and all we want you to do is just go to university, and we'll take care of everything else. And fortunately, I had this little bit of a cushioned approach to childhood, so I didn't really need to do much. But I remember, it's an embarrassing story, because it has to be an embarrassing story, but I remember trying to get a job, my first job out of school, and it was a muffin break. I keep telling you the story, and I went to this job, and I went to the interview, and I wore a suit. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's what you do in an interview. And they asked me all these questions, and I didn't get it. I was like, that's it, my life is over. I can't ever get a job, so I'm leaving. But I do remember, so I got another job after that, which was good. But I do remember starting something in my early 20s, which was around 3D VR, 3D visualizations for products, where you get 3D Max and all that kind of products. And I remember doing the first Mazda MR2, modeled it up, spun it around so you can change different colours. Yeah, Mazda, yeah. Modeled so you can spin it 360 degrees, change the colour of the body, and this was 15 years ago, so I think it was the dial-up there. And I remember going to Mazda and trying to sell it to them. And they looked at it, they loved it, but they went no. So I went, holy shit, this isn't going to work. So I went to, I tried a couple of other places and they said no. And then I said one last go and I went to Honda. This Honda motorbike division. And they loved it and went, yeah, here we've got the new range of our top end bikes. Can you do this for us? And we'll pay you peanuts. Yes! I'm off. And that was the last project I ever got. So I decided to, pull the kids up.
Just did it once, but
Yeah. Pull the kids up. Yeah, that was it. So that was my first experience.
I don't know. I've had jobs since forever. When I was a kid, my friend's dad worked in a factory, and in the holidays we go away from the factory, and we did this for like a series of holidays until it was discovered that we were actually operating machinery. So I didn't have that job for like
Yeah. So the scenery was
Just
a problem,
following
not,
sources.
yeah,
Just following sources.
right.
I don't know. I've always worked. I guess entrepreneurship is just. I don't know. I started a recruitment business maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Technical recruitment. Just woke up and did it one day. That's it.
What did you guys do for education? So did you go to uni, get degrees?
I had to.
No, I did an advanced diploma in marketing and advertising.
So how did that get you into recruitment?
It didn't. It got me into advertising, which got me into PR, which got me into digital project management, which got me into recruitment. Which got me here.
So how did it get you into lots of different ventures? I guess.
It didn't directly. I don't know. I think to do what we do, you have to just be good at, not amazing at any one thing, just good at lots of things, and be really curious. I don't think you take a straight path to what we do.
What about you? So you had to.
Yeah, I did mechanical engineering. I followed in the father's footsteps on that one. Didn't really enjoy it. Loved IT. I had a computer at the age of 12 or whatever. So, that was really my core passion from a young age. So mechanical engineering. Then I did a sort of a computing degree, but it was a computing marketing degree, a master's at RMIT in Melbourne. Still hadn't had enough, and I travelled to Europe and lived there for a couple of years. And I did my executive MBA there as well. So education.
That's me. That's way too many years of doing. Like, I couldn't sit still for that long to study. Not able. Just not able.
So I guess I like this because I left school at the end of the year. I don't have any degrees. I just taught myself that program when I was 8, and I just kept moving from there. So seeing that you guys both basically sit at the table every day listening to other people's stories and deciding where you're going to get the money. How does that work with you two coming from like picking the right team? Like this, do you carry? Because I guess from the idea part, most VCs would say this: the ideas plays a part. That's really the team that they would more focus into.
Yeah.
So how does that work with your opinion on people who go to school and then the founders? Does that play any way in making the decision on like, do you need a founder who went to the school of hard knocks?
I can honestly, hand on heart, say that we never ask whether that person has an education, whether they went to uni. In any interview, any meeting, any screening, that's never a question that we ask. So we're more concerned and more, we'd rather be shocked by a number of other factors, not by whether they're high school kids.
Yeah. I don't think that would affect me either way, positively or negatively. I think someone today said they've done advanced mathematics, and I thought that was awesome.
But the application of whatever they're doing.
Yeah, it's a different thing to what they're doing now.
If you look at the top, some good, some amazing founders. So that's not a metric. That's not a metric of success. So we don't. That's why we never ask that question. What's interesting for me personally is, like the questionnaire on risk. How much risk have you taken as a founder to get to today? And risk can revolve around so many different factors. Schooling is one of it. So if you do drop out and start something, that's putting your balls on the line and believing in yourself, and that's like a positive thing. Because you've taken the risk to follow your dream and create a journey for yourselves.
Cool. So how your operation now, like your day-to-day job, can you just describe sort of what each of you do?
I don't know. We both like people and pictures. We look after our portfolio companies. So we currently have 4 in the portfolio, and we help them run their businesses. Not run their businesses, but like we give them advice and assistance and stuff like that. The big pitch, national tour, things that we come up with and then have to build in like a short space of time. You know?
I mean, it is a lot of, for us, it's, the outcome is finding the best, investment opportunities and actually converting them into an investment. So we have a lot of, our funnel is massive, and we have to screen that down. So in terms of building that funnel up is important. It's, key criteria to what we do.
What kind of steps do you go to building your funnel? Do you find that more of the startups are constantly chasing you, or do you think that you're more in a position that you're always out having to find startups?
It's not, there's no one answer. It's both. We get approached a lot, and we go out of our way to run events and speak to companies that even aren't raising, but know that they look like they're going in the right direction. So it's always interesting to hear their story so far, and what they're doing next, and then hopefully when they are about to capital raise, where they think about it. So there's a lot of conversations and deal sourcing techniques out there. But for us, it's important to get conversations going in this funnel as early as possible.
So it's all about context and relationships.
Exactly. So it is. It's a lot of networking, it's a lot of meetups, it's a lot of getting out there and showcasing who we are. It's sitting behind the desk, never going to be found. So it's like any entrepreneur as well. You've got to go out there and hustle.
Yeah, exactly.
We want to find stuff that we're also interested in as well, and that we can add value to, not just people just looking for funding.
So how much does that play into, I guess, with your company? Do you have a strategy of the types of investments you want to get into? Is that based off of industries or based off of the size of the potential, or how fast they scale, how quickly you can get the business, how you flip that and get your money back? What sort of...
Based on our value first, what we can contribute.
So I think sort of expanding on that, there's a committee team. It's very small, but they have their own skill sets. So mine is technology. There's operations and business, other ones are marketing and database building. And so, they're sort of the key businesses that we go, okay, can we add value from any of these three, or all three? If it ticks all boxes, then it makes sense that it's a nice fit for both sides, because then we can add a lot of value to those companies from a strategic and broad level.
So would you say that you guys are more like a seed type of funding? Where do you see in terms of someone trying to raise money? When do they come and talk to you? When do you approach them? It seems like you guys are doing hands-on, not just here's the check, send us a report every couple of months. Your status, and if you're doing good, then if you're here from us, if you're doing bad, then you'll come and try to see.
Look, I think it's we've been around for just over 2 years. We had a vision, we had a thesis that we sort of followed, which was getting in, helping out as much as possible, even operationally if we needed to. We've realised that it's not, some founders don't want that. So, and that's not a bad thing, it's actually a good thing. So more so recently, we're looking at later stage companies, so companies that are, have a product, have some paying clients, have validated that product, hopefully there's a product market fit, and then it's more of a comfortable, conversation. We do have a lot of conversations with earlier companies, however it just becomes, difficult unless there's really something amazingly special about that company that we will entertain going to the next level. Otherwise, we can't answer whether there's going to be a product market fit, because we just don't know. And unless we're the customers and we're the clients, yeah, exactly, then it's going to be hard to sort of evaluate whether it's going to be successful.
So how often do you find that you say that you waste a lot of time with the earlier companies, or do you see that that's the value of talking to someone who just has an idea and they're still in the bedroom building?
They're hopefully going to end up at the point where they're not just that early stage, so I wouldn't say that's wasting time at all. Plus we like to help, and if we've got advice or something to say to them, then we try and be like
we just got to be very, very on time as well. It's not big arrogant or anything like that. There's only a limited amount of our own time that we have per week, so we'd say yes to every single meeting. It's just we wouldn't be able to physically fit it. So we do have to at some point say, okay, we're only going to be speaking to these later stage companies because we'd love to speak to everyone and be mentors to everyone else, but we're just going to run out of time. So, but it is, we do, you know, if we see something in the press and they're at early stage and they look impressive, then we'll, you know, say hello, how you going? We're going to have a chat. But yeah, no.
So how did the big pitch come about then? Because I guess that's a bit different than any other, like, you have VC firms that are out there doing accelerators, where you guys have taken a little bit of a different approach. Do you want to explain a little bit about how the pitch came about and what you guys do and what you see in the future of the big pitch being?
My honest opinion, I don't know, we just made it up. And it just kind of got bigger. And then we were doing it as, I don't know, when we were coming up with it, we didn't think it was going to be that big a thing. We thought it would be like a little bigger. I think at one point I thought we'd be lucky to have 20 people in the room.
Do you have a name for them?
Yeah. No.
It was actually my idea, and I hated it, but we just ran with it for the first bit. And so,
Was that one yours?
yeah. Okay, good. Oh, yeah, I'm taking credit.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah. But so it's called O2 pitch, you know, oxygen. So we thought, you know, do that. And then I got an email from a telco in the UK. It's called O2, and they told me, no way, I've got to pay a license or shut it down. I'm like, okay, lucky we didn't launch with this.
So you changed the name. Your first one was last year.
Yeah.
That was just Melbourne.
No, so
now you're like the national. You're on a tour now. So
The applications for more than just national. There was some international as well. It wasn't that we set out to do a national or a Melbourne pitch competition. We just came up with it and it happened. I think this year we're trying to be a little bit more present with including the nation.
So, I mean, just to add on to why, I mean, there was a bit of, I mean, apart from the concept idea coming out of, you know, coffee conversation, but then sort of retrospectively thinking about why we proceeded with it, it's a bit like, you know, any you know, we're a startup effectively as well, and we're trying to get our name out there. Our clients are startups and founders, and we need to make sure that they know who we are. So like any company out there, they need to go and find their clients. So the way that we thought to do it is we can either spend a whole crap of money on advertising, which is really just not what you do, or let's create something that's an event that's aligned with our values and what we're trying to achieve, and create something big out of it. Now, originally big was 20 people, but it ended up being 360 people, which is a sellout. So
that applied. Okay.
That came on,
We had like 300-ish applications.
So we opened it up, you know, online. We didn't expect too high with expectations. I think we had 6 weeks or 8 weeks in total from the opening application, or from the idea to the event, and we just thought, oh, let's try it out. But you know, strategically thinking that we've got to have some press behind it, we have to have some sponsors, we're going to have a nice event.
Your original brief was 4 weeks, I think.
Yeah. So I thought I could get away with 4 weeks.
No, to me.
Yeah. I don't know.
Wow.
We did it in 8, so it wasn't that bad. But
Yeah.
So how much do you think, like, in the startup scene now, you have all these terms like lean startup and, you know, all these other ways of how you should be running a startup. You guys being a startup too, that's what I like. That's sort of, you see venture capitalist companies, these big guys with lots of money, and most people that have been raised are sort of scared of that, in a sense, because they're going to take it, they're going to have to present themselves. You guys are sort of in the same boat, the same shoes trying to do a startup too. Yeah. How much do you apply those methodologies to obviously do ventures building and also the pitch?
like, so
Like, would you say that you win a lot of stuff?
yeah, and that's the thing. I think we sort of propose a whole bunch of ideas between ourselves and go, it's going to stick, and let's try it out. And you know, there's small things, larger things, like this national tour was like, you know, what do we need to make it different from last year? Because, you know, so, okay, whiteboarded it. What else can we do? You know, what
I didn't know whose idea it was.
that was I'm going to put my hand up.
I'm organised.
No, but I suppose what we did, you know, from a lean startup perspective, or you know, so last year we spoke to a lot of people after the event as well, and we wanted to get as much feedback as possible from the people who attended, from the people who applied, just from the community as well. And this year we did the same thing. We went around and asked as well, what do you think, to sort of invest the space. So we try to actually get their feedback.
Good and bad as well.
Yeah. And we try to work out, is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? And then after the event, what was special about it? And we have a whole bunch of feedback in terms of what went wrong, what they'd like to change. And we're implementing that this year as well. So that's how, well, all more sort of iterative approach.
Yeah,
so
refining based on feedback. I think it.
Yeah, it's still the same sort of event, and we're using that same strategy of, what's next, how can we make this better this year, how can we make it more impactful, how can we make it interesting for the audience, and also, so sort of we do apply the same approach.
So how did you find this year compared to last year? Because I think I met you guys. So I came to Melbourne, was it 2 months ago? I came and met you guys. I was like panicking in the boardroom then, just because there was so much you had to get done in so little time. How have you found like the last few weeks now?
You come in and see us like that 6 months ago, 7 months ago, 4 months ago.
You just have to do it. You can't.
Yeah, you just do.
You don't. Time is your enemy, so you just have to do it. Once you're on the journey, like if you said I'm going to do this, particularly now we're pretty much in it, and you just can't backtrack. So it's just hustle and just do it. And that's a good thing. So.
Cool. So how have you found like the big pitch compared to not going through an accelerate? Like, do you think that going forward, like the theory of why you had the big pitch would be enough to just
accelerator is such a different thing, though. It's nothing. It's not the same as the big pitch.
It's because in terms of like it's not necessarily a competition. It's a competition in a sense, but the prize at the end is a little bit different. Whereas I can go to a pitch competition and I get a small amount of money. This gives me an opportunity. How have you tested that? Or have you found people respond to pitching and then there's still the other part of doing the deal at the end? Have you had much bad feedback from that, or just found it?
So, I mean, if I understand the question correctly, so I suppose just going back a bit, like the premise of the big pitch is to really be transparent as transparent as we can in our investment process. So what we're saying is apply, we're going to speak to as many people as possible, which is what we do on a daily basis anyway. We're going to talk to you, meet with you, as we do it anyway in our process. We'll do our pre-due diligence as we normally do. Then we will have our final committee. You present in front of the final committee, which is what we do anyway. So that event is that final committee, effectively meeting. And then after that is our term sheet, due diligence process, and close. So that's our process in normal. And all this event is doing is showcasing that transparent aspect for the first half until there are financials, which no business wants in the public anyway. So we've got to respect the founders and the entrepreneurs, make sure we don't cross any lines. But everything prior to that, that's what we're trying to do. It's just a transparent aspect of our process. So we just try to make an event out of it, just to not to.
Sales channel.
It's another sales channel. It's another funnel that we're trying to do. But the whole point is that we're trying to make an event because it's a competition. It's to some extent there's a bit of entertainment behind it. But in the end, all those 5 finalists, we prep ourselves that they're all investable from our perspective. We would sign a term sheet with all of them, technically. So what we've done is to say,
control the judges.
Yeah, we don't control the judges, and so we thought, okay, let's get their feedback and validation as well on the night. And then that's the first term sheet that we sign.
So with that, though, if there's all 5 people that you really invested in, do you still follow through with that anyway?
Yeah,
but it's just like you get the lights.
Yeah, so they get the publicity, they get the trophy, they get the thing on the night, but technically all 5. There'd be a problem in our process if we wouldn't go to the next stage of all 5. Yeah. And we did last year. We basically did the due diligence on I think 4 of them, and 1 of them we didn't get to implementation stage. So it's different to an accelerator, which is if you're talking about the demo day, pitching to get into an accelerator.
Yeah, I think it's the process. Like the accelerator is a small amount up front. You're in it for a little bit longer. I'm just trying to work out why?
So they get taught though in the accelerator to become investable, whereas we're looking for businesses that already are investable.
Cool. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. You just try to work out the difference of why you're going down.
So probably a bit further back when you're trying to still figure out, do I have something here? What is it? How do I get to a point where it is definitely a cracked formula that means I've got something? We're looking more for something that needs scale. Because that's where we can actually help what's money.
So, talking about the Australian scene at the moment, a lot of people are talking about startup scene and investors and why you can't go to America and raise money compared to Australia. What's your thoughts on raising money in Australia? How easy is it? The deal that you kind of get here compared to America? Do you have any opinion on that?
It's not easy to, well, from my perspective, that's not super easy to answer. I think we have fewer investors, fewer startups, fewer people looking to start up, simply because we don't have the visibility at this point. But we've only been to Adelaide and Hobart so far on this tour, but already we're seeing there are so many people looking to be involved, or for help, or for investment, or to be in this industry, and they're isolated. I was saying this the other day that technology, like the cloud, has made collaboration so easy in terms of technology, but relationship-wise, we just haven't cracked how to collaborate in a relationship.
So if you had a magic wand, what would you do to help that happen? So I guess
it's going to
Adelaide, we're going to Perth, going to Brisbane and Sydney. Next year will probably include more cities. We're not dead by then. I think you just have to, we have to get out there and probably reduce some of the fragmentation. But I think it's up to everyone in this industry to probably contribute a bit more.
Because that's what I'm trying to work out. It's like, what's the war on? Like, I like this and that every month.
Yeah.
Then no one does that one as well. Like, how do we get to a point?
Well, you're highly engaged, but I think there's probably other people here that could be a little bit more involved as well. I think most people don't feel like they have value for the greater ecosystem, but that's so untrue. Aww.
Come sit in.
Do you want to switch?
You want to come join? This is give him the class and then we fight. So, what got you into wanting to be in this position? I guess, like, how do you find that? Is it a passion you want, or you just picked up one day and hey, I want to go and make it rain to people?
I don't even know how I got yet. I'm really curious, and I've got good shallow knowledge on a lot of things. So for me, it's just this is fun. It's a whole lot of fun.
Did you guys know each other before you started? So how putting oxygen ledgers together? I can go to your website, it shows me everyone's involved. Like, can you sort of piece together how oxygen ledgers happened?
Okay, so the inception and the seed was behind Larry Kestelman, who was the founder of Dodo Telecommunications, or Dodo. He exited that company in 2012. I was affiliated with other things that he was getting involved with. And at that time, we had our first sort of informal investment into a couple of guys. So at that stage, it was interesting to work on a project like that. And what happened after that was I said to Larry, look, I think, when he exited, can we formalise this? Because I think there's an opportunity to back other founders and build a business and help them grow. And he thought that was a fantastic idea. At that time, he exited out of Dodo, he was cashed up. From that extent, everything was aligned. So that's how Oxygen was born, from that sort of story. And then after that, it was let's help, let's build, let's try and find the best founders out there. Yeah, and then I suppose when around the big pitch the first time around, Adelaide was part of the seed of that idea. I said, well, I think we'll be involved. She was a workhorse and just diligent and never gave up and just said no, never said no, sorry. And,
I said no a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So, and
so
it was a pivotal.
Persistence.
Yeah, and a great networker as well. And I thought that you need these kind of people in your team who just who have that passion as well. So, and that's my passion as well. Like, founders, technology. This is what I was brought up with. So,
would you get into like an actual startup?
This is a start.
But to go to the next one, like, would you go Google Technologies? Like, so you're in a really good position that I want to get to one day, but I get to be in your position to be a startup and making a name for other people. What's the next step after Oxygen Ventures? Do you have something yet that you can think of, or is it just going to stay here and just play for a couple of things?
I think we're, like, me personally, we're such an early stage in this space. It's great to be at the bottom of the rise. I mean, there's still, I want another 5 funds after this. Each 50 to 100 mil, just support it because I think it's just going to get better. Like the companies that will exit, their team will come back and create new ideas. Basically, that's what Valley does right now. You PayPal Mafia, you want the same thing here. You want these guys or girls who are part of awesome startups and growth companies and start creating things again. So I want to stay in this.
Yeah, but I mean, this is startup as well. Even doing more funds and those startups again and again. We really like this. I think we've got a lot of value to give the ecosystem. I don't think we're going anywhere.
I think I'll stop when I think the maybe just an assumption is, but I think the problem in this industry is maybe as a person who's screening and investing in companies, if you get to a stagnant place in yourself, like you start to say, no, that's never going to happen, that's never going to happen. You don't take that's the adverse aspect of VC, which is risk. So to some extent, when you have a company come across the desk or pop up and they're this absolutely obscure thing that you just go, this is not going to work any other way, that's probably going to hang up the boots because that's like said the opposite of what we think.
Do you think you have that more? You look something more optimistic or pessimistic?
Hey, we come up with the craziest ideas on a daily basis.
He's pointing at us.
I said we. So, I mean, if a 10th or a 50, or like I said, 5% of these ideas come to fruition, we'd be living in a weird world. A pretty cool world, but a weird world. So, I mean, that's the whole point. Like, we want to be wowed, and what I do anyway. Like, I just want to be inspired and just blown away by ideas.
So, going back to like the Australian scene, they're trying to get, you've got like the massive and all these guys that go through start making all these other programs. They end up in America, they get fucked in America, they make it big, and then they're starting to come back. It's just starting to get that round of these founders that are coming back and helping out the Australian scene. When do you have any ideas when do you think we're going to get to a point that you're not going to a program anymore?
I think we're really close. I do. I think we're very, very close. People are starting to see success. I think that's probably the biggest block for there to be success here. So once you see it, it's visible. More people put more money in, more people start up. So I feel like we're only a couple of years away.
I don't think it's a problem, to be honest. If you're Australian and come up with something awesome and it's growing, and you go to the US and you make it massive and you exit, I don't understand why that's a bad thing. But we're still Australian. We still made success of it. We should be proud of that. It doesn't matter where we are in the world. It's great if we can stay here and create jobs. And if it's still bad, that's awesome if we can do that. I think you can do that if you're a pure play online only company where you don't need to have a sales force in in the US and in Singapore and in London and Paris. We can do that. We have the ability, we have the know-how to do that. It's just, some companies aren't built that way, and we shouldn't be, crashing those, founders down just because they leave. I think it's still a great opportunity and fantastic that they go overseas and become successful. Something to think about.
Yeah, most of them do. I think you find people in Adelaide that leave Adelaide, they always say they're coming back here to raise their kids.
There you go.
So I think you have the same thing, people go overseas and come back to Australia to raise their kids. I think we'll open up if anyone has any questions, and then we'll wrap it up.
Cool. I've got a question. So what type of projects do you tend to invest in, or like what projects have been successful for you? Because obviously you guys are still in business, so what's been successful for you?
So, it's still early days for us. We're year number 2. We've got 4 investments so far. So, usually a fund sort of exits, most of their portfolio companies exit between 5 and 7 years, so we've got a few years to go on some of them. We've got one that's entering Series B, so the next round. So internally we think, that if that goes ahead, that is success because it validates that we've made the right decision. But in terms of your first question, what do we invest in? It's really, online companies, so software, mobile, web, the verticals are pretty broad. The only thing that we sort of tend to shy away from is like bio, real hardcore simulations. Simulation's not bad, like any VR, AR stuff that you guys are really interested in.
Like production, like a hardware that needs production, but that's not our space, we don't do production lines.
Anything fast.
Pharmaceuticals are slightly outside of the
anything sort of, clean tech, is probably, unless it's software only, like it's hard for us to add value to.
So what we do like is software, global first, something that's business, B2B, database, maybe B2C.
And consumer.
How far along the line when you do see with businesses you talk to, what sort of percentages, and just roughly, where do you see people moving along that line? And is there a point where, is there a sort of critical point where you feel that you are going to be a team with them? Is there, how early along that sort of investment stage do you feel that you've got a match? Is it, obviously it's not the first conversation, but is it that last sort of committee meeting where, or is the committee meeting confirmation?
You definitely feel whether or not there's something there.
Okay.
If someone's investable pretty quickly. That's quite obvious. Yeah.
I know what it's now.
It's at the time.
What makes someone investable?
You can answer it since you opened it up.
No, it's so hard to get into it because I go off gut instinct. I see things in someone that either, and maybe it changes, maybe they're at a particular point in their life where they're not investable, maybe in a year's time they're at a different point. So I don't think it's that black and white, but for me it's my instinct.
I'll probably quantify that slightly just to help the audience. So I'll give you an example. Today I won't mention the person, but they started this story and we sort of went, okay, where is this leading to? And then at the end of the meeting we were blown away to some extent. I'm not going to write a check there and there, but we were blown away by the whole package. So what stood out is the guy managed, it wasn't the person, but it was with the guy, managed to raise capital, even if it was a small amount, build a phenomenal advisory team, build a core team of people that he realised that that's his weaknesses, and really honed in on his message. And he was forceful, like you could see the persistence was there, like you could see he's been doing it over a number of years. And the passion today, like the way he was talking about it, was as if it was his first day as he came up with the idea. So just like to get that, that kind of character of a person, like you sort of go, I can probably bet on this guy because he's passionate, he's still going, and he's building, and he's having, small successes, and he's creating those successes for himself, and he's in control.
He's very deliberate about the things that he brought in to his business as well, which I think is really impressive.
I think I've got one more question, which was, when is the right time to actually go and raise money? So, do you try and raise money when you just have an idea? Like, my son was pitching ideas to you.
I don't mention
Because of the space we're in, we're going to give you a different answer to someone who's probably more at the seed stage. I think from my perspective, when you can't meet demand in some context, that's when you need to be finding ways to meet that demand.
I'll give you, anecdotally, I heard a story about Mark Zuckerberg and him approaching Peter Thiel, his first founder, who was the ex-PayPal founder. And the story that Peter Thiel was saying was Mark came up to him and he was showing him Facebook, and he was sort of rolling his eyes. And then he asked Mark, why do you need, this funding? I think it was like $600,000. And Mark goes, I need this money because the demand is so high, and my servers aren't able to keep up, so I need money for servers. So it's sort of answering, going along with what Adelaide is saying. If there's demand, and you need cash for demand, then you seriously invest in those things.
So I think that's the hard one for the angel path, the angel round is, I have an idea, I'm doing something, but for me, I can't put my 9 to 5. I want to put do this, how do I get to quit my 9 to 5 and I can save all the money? I've got a small amount of time to work on that idea before someone else customers it takes. Do you have anything on that in terms of should they be raising money, or is there a better way for them to approach get their business on the ground?
It's that again. I mean, sometimes when people think they have an idea, they have a solution. They don't have a problem that they need to solve because that problem is such a big problem. And so many people have it. I don't know. I mean, if you really believe in something, you'll find a way to make it happen around everything else you're doing.
You'll be able to convince people.
Yeah.
I think just early on, a specific, I suppose, an investor like a VC, you find very difficult to, back an idea. Even early stage seed these days is a minimal viable product, so you would have had to spend still something, time or money or something to build a product to get to a stage where you can at least show what it looks like and have some problem.
That's the biggest thing that we see is people try and solve this whole big long solution in their very first version, and it's not the way to do it.
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, same here. I think we all
Spend a little, test it out, ask users, they'll tell you the answer.
Yeah,
if it's
people will pull it through. There will be demand.
Also, you don't need to be afraid of, I think there's this innate fear that someone's going to steal your idea.
Still your idea.
And everyone's like so like.
I'm glad we're past the NPA stuff.
Yeah.
It's just NPA.
But still, it's innately
like. Things are the same, like Slack and like HipChat, Periscope, and I was going to bring that. The same idea will be done over and over and over and over. It just doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it's very easy to execute the best. That's what it comes down to. You can have the same idea as 5 other people, but if you do it better than them, you're the one who's going to win, not them. So,
That comes back to that collaboration. So,
yeah, don't be siloed.
Yeah.
Go to these meetups, go to these and introduce the ideas and vet it and ask people, what do you think of this idea? They're not going to steal it. They've no interest in it. It's your passion, not theirs. Exactly. That's why, we're never heard like for us to steal an idea. Like, we're too busy to people here.
Alright.
And I suppose the last point in terms of sort of on that topic of investors, the other thing that I try to bring up a lot, particularly with founders that are early, is think about what investment means and getting an investor on board. I was mentioning this to someone just before, like, you have to understand what is the investor's reason? And they have their own ulterior motive. And us as investors, we need a capital return. That's our business. So we put in money and we try to get something out of it, hopefully a substantial amount, but at least not fail. So that's what we look for, and that's our business model. And founders need to understand that as well, that if you have an investor on board, these people's motivation is someday, one day, get their money back. And that means either sell your company or hopefully, everything goes amazingly IPO. So if you have an idea, if you have a business and passion, and it's something that you want, profits from, and it's something that you never want to give away or sell, you never get an investor on board because that's not there. It's a complete misalignment of two different parties of the founding team. So that's I suppose a big education thing for founders in Australia is just understanding that that's what investment means. And be careful when you think you need investment because it means something different to the other side of the table.
In the background, you're spending a lot of time arguing with that partner because you're trying to drive the company in a certain direction.
Well, exactly right. Yeah.
And sometimes that doesn't align. That's what it's trying to get out of it.
So, yeah.
No more questions?
So, how do you differentiate between risk and passion? I remember you talked about risk. So we've got two sets of founders and entrepreneurs. At one level is a founder who quits his job and starts working on an idea that he's passionate about. On the other hand, we have a founder who works full-time or part-time to raise money for the idea that he likes. He comes up with the prototype, come up with the product. So on the other hand, this founder, he's not taking a risk, but he's passionate about it. The first founder, he's taken a risk, he quit his job, and he's working on the idea, but he doesn't have money. He's taken a risk, he's got passion. On the other hand, he has a passion as well. But so how do you differentiate? Is that a risk or a passion?
Passion is much more important than risk.
Yeah.
But you need to be passionate and then take risks.
Yeah,
It's just risky. Who quits their job
So
to
you-
work on something they're not passionate about?
So I've been reading a lot about funding interviews and other things. The first question that ever comes is, so you didn't quit your job, so that means you're not passionate. So is that a norm these days that all right, you need to sacrifice something to come up with a startup idea, to come up with a product of your own, and this is what will get the money. So is this a norm?
That
Norm to quit
investors
something or to sacrifice, your job and
Yeah, to reach higher, you do need to sacrifice something.
But on the other hand, you don't have money to run.
Yeah, I'm not saying you have to sacrifice your job.
Yeah.
I think probably all of your free time.
Yes, yeah.
Every moment of being a normal person.
Yeah.
I think it's also really, really important to have some sort of reality test.
Yeah.
Not surround yourself by people who just tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
As well. I think that's a big mistake that people make if they are going to quit their job and throw everything into it.
Yeah.
You need some kind of sounding board that it's not
So
in
you
that
might
way.
not just go, yeah, it's a really
Yeah,
good idea.
all the friends and everyone telling you, yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Because you're feeding them that information, they're just going to feed it back to you.
I was going to say what you said actually, yeah. I think when you're taking that risk to leave your job, you got to think, are you at that point where you can support yourself with what you're doing? Because in the end, you want to go for investment. Like, you want to be at a point where the demand is great enough. So you don't want to be quitting your job and yourself like shit, as bad as it sounds, if you don't have a demand for it.
I think we've ever said to someone had to quit your job for this.
Yeah.
I don't think we get to that point. It's either we get the idea and we get what they're doing with the business and how invested they are and how great they are.
I think you get to a point where if you get paying clients and it's growing and it's going in the right direction and you're speaking to us, then there must be a couple of things going right for you. You could probably get to a point where, I think this tire kicking job I can probably go and let's do something that I love.
question. This is sort of not on this entrepreneurial side, but like the VC side. With your first punt of investing into someone, how should you invest?
How should you invest?
No, how much did you invest in the first punt? Absolute very first punt.
So the deal is that
The-
before I start also ventures or
When you decide to become a VC, how much did you invest in the first?
Yeah, I think that was the first one. I mean, it's not because it was our first one. Yeah, it's just that was the first opportunity that we had, and they didn't need any of us.
Because yeah, so myself, I'm looking to at some point get the goal right and become a VC.
Our second investment was our largest,
Okay.
which is like 5 now. So I don't know if that sort of answers the question, but it's opposite that. Yeah. So it's not. I mean, we have a limit, and we said we're not going to go outside of this limit.
Yeah.
But we knew that if we were going to say 5 million, we were going to be able to write achieve 5 million. We did.
cool.
So you guys would have heard of lean startup. You would have heard about that, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So like they kind of subscribe to, and Google does it too, where they have a division where they just create. They don't create actual products. They just create demos or some sort of representation of that product to test and gauge to see if there's any market or any validation towards that. Just wondering what's your opinion on that, because you're talking about having something that's going to be scalable compared to something that's completely new and hasn't been really proven yet. So I was just wondering what's your opinion there with that sort of theory.
You know, I think the lean startup approach works for that idea to validation concept. I mean, like I said before, everyone has lots of ideas that they think they're solving, global problems, but you just never know. So I think it works from let's iterate quickly, create a prototype, test it, ask people, and see if it actually is a need for people. That's where lean startup really works. So it's like quickly start something up and fail quickly and learn from those. But don't do the, and this is a bit of a generalization, but I think there's a lot of data points here, particularly engineers and developers. They think they have a solution. They spend a year developing this polished product, never speaking to a single client or a user at all, then going out there and they're thinking everyone's just going to buy and pay the money. Like, that's the anti-lean approach.
So, an example though of just creating a solution, not solving a problem.
So I absolutely love it, and I think it's cheap. You can risk without actually quitting a job, and you can test it out and see what's going in. All you need is that incremental increase of demand, even if it's small. At least it gives you some idea whether you're going in the right direction.
I think you guys did that pretty good. The first version. You came up with an idea, sort of went out there, told the people, see if it sticks. I think that's what most founders sort of start their first one. They get stuck on the idea. It's so precious they don't want to tell anyone about it. And then they also don't want to go out and try to find a customer because they're not ready. And I think for me as a developer, my thing looks like a piece of crap I'm shooting. But I want to be perfect because I know exactly how I'm going the product.
You're going to have people going, oh, this looks crap, and use it, but you're going to have other people that will, and once you, and that's the other thing with, particularly, in tech companies, is if you do get clients and users, call them, speak to them, they're human on the other side, ask them, why are you using this? Like, is it fulfilling a need? And they'll tell you their whole life story. It's amazing how, like, when you do speak to them, they will open up.
They have a customer expert as well. So
Yeah, exactly, and then they'll tell you, oh, I should be pink, and but it's and you just do that many times until you get a polished solution.
And by then, okay, you have a big client base, you have a product, and then you find the next thing to tackle.
The hardest bit is working out who your client is as well. That's some part of the lean startup is okay, you create a product and a prototype over a couple of weeks and go, okay, great, test it out, then when you give it to them, obviously you've got to be quite clear up front. You've got to make sure that the prototype is designed for the client and the users, so you've got to think about all these questions up front as well.
I've kind of got a question, but it's more about pitching than investment. I've got an idea for a particular global company which I think will increase their revenue by 3 times a year. But it's using existing technology, existing everything. It's just they haven't implemented it. How do you pitch that to someone without them just going, "That's a great idea, I'll just do it"? How do you pitch without losing your hold on that idea?
That's really hard to answer because I mean, if it's not necessarily your solution, and it's not necessarily your infrastructure.
No, it's just
or your
the idea and how
customers.
to bring it together.
Yeah, I think.
I spoke to another founder the other day as well, and I'm not saying this is the answer, but I'm just saying this is a process that was taken that might be a solution is to say the MVP was actually done in PowerPoint, and she was just linking things together in PowerPoint, and literally, super rough as you can imagine, but it is sort of something in the background, but at least show the process.
Yeah.
And yes, as long as you don't show what happens in the background, at least you can show them the process that could be a solution. Show that at least you're thinking, a step ahead.
Maybe from the perspective of the person you're trying to sell the solution to, if you make yourself so relevant to that solution, then they won't want to do it without you. I think find a way to do that. Find a way to add so much value that it's not
It
worth
just
doing
makes it easy for
outside
them to say yes rather than try and do it themselves. Yeah.
And that's where you come back to that character strength, that enthusiasm that you've been talking about. Essentially, you're talking about one of the things that strikes you about your investors is that they seem to have a sense of presence and alignment with what they're bringing to you. And so how important is that, feeling of something incredibly aligned from the person to the product that they're presenting to you?
You need to believe that they can do it.
So it's not about how much they can sell it. They still have to show that they can do it. Sometimes it's difficult to invest in a visionary when there is no substance behind it. Like they have a solution and they're solving a big problem. You need to see something.
But also, going back to your question as well, it's kind of like, you could buy things off of the internet and you could just exchange cash through bank accounts and that would be fine. But why do people use PayPal and pay that surcharge? Because there's something in addition that, whether it's perceived or real value, they do it and they pay the additional price for that. I think that's a perfect example of just making yourself so relevant to a solution that people don't want to do without you. And again, that's just, they've created a perception or a real value on top of something and aligning that with what they're doing. Oh,
It's late.
yes.
She's going to say
See, perfect example.
become relevant. Thank you, everyone. Can you do voice? Right. So everyone on their feet. Let's go. Put your hand ahead. Thank you very much for coming.
No. And we're the watcher now.